the tremendous progress we've made over the last century by a series of forces are in fact accelerating to a point that we have the potential in the next 3 decades to create a world of abundance. Now, I'm not saying we don't have our set of problems. Climate crisis, species extinction, water and energy shortage, we surely do. And as humans, we are far better at seeing the problems way in advance, but ultimately, we knock them down. Underpinning much of this is technology, and of late, exponentially growing technologies. We truly are living in an extraordinary time. And many people forget this. This is Moore's Law over the last 100 years. I want you to notice 2 things from this curve. Number 1, how smooth it is. Through good time and bad time, wartime and peacetime, recession, depression, and boom time. This is the result of faster computers being used to build faster computers. It doesn't slow for any of our grand challenges. And also, even though it's plotted on a log curve on the left, it's curving upwards. The rate at which the technology is getting faster is itself getting faster. And on this curve, riding on Moore's Law, are a set of extraordinarily powerful technologies available to all of us. Cloud computing, what my friends at Autodesk call infinite computing, sensors and networks, robotics, 3D printing, which is the ability to democratize and distribute personalized production around the planet, synthetic biology, fuels, vaccines, and foods, digital medicine, nanomaterials, and AI.
Science and technology are propelling us forward at accelerating rates.
That's right. And if we don't understand it, by we I mean the general public, if it's something that, oh, I'm not good at that, I don't know anything about it, then who is making all the decisions about science and technology that are going to determine what kind of future our children live in? Just some members of Congress? Science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking. A way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
My sense is the problem lies with the fact that our business leaders, our government leaders, and for that matter, the rest of us, we are continuing to rely on 18th and 19th century ideas about human nature and the human journey that were spawned at the beginning of the market era, the nation-state era. And at that period of time, we had a great discussion, the Enlightenment. John Locke, the great political philosopher of the Enlightenment, he said, look, babies are born tabula rasa, blank slate. They're not born in sin. But he did leave a little opening. He said, however, there is a predisposition to acquire property. Somebody should have caught him on that.
Scarcity is contextual, and technology is a resource-liberating force. The cost of solar dropped 50% last year. Last month, MIT put out a study showing that by the end of this decade, in the sunny parts of the United States, solar electricity would be 6 cents a kilowatt hour compared to 15 cents as a national average. And if we have abundant energy, we also have abundant water. Because we live on a water planet. We live on a planet 70% covered by water. Yes, 97.5% is salt water, 2% is ice, and we fight over 0.5% of the water on this planet. But here too, there is hope. And there is technology coming online, not 10, 20 years from now, right now. And the conversation I had with Dean Kamen this morning, one of the great DIY innovators I'd like to share with you, his technology called Slingshot, that many of you may have heard of, it's the size of a small dorm room refrigerator. It's able to generate 1,000 liters of clean drinking water a day out of any source, salt water, polluted water, latrine, at less than 2 cents a liter. This is the kind of innovation that exists today.
I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful. But we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed.
In the last 10 years, under the radar, there's been some very interesting developments in evolutionary biology, neurocognitive science, child development research, and many other fields, which is beginning to challenge some of these long-held shibboleths that we've had about human nature and the meaning of the human journey. This was the dominant frame of reference, utilitarian, self-interested, materialistic. It really challenges these assumptions. And with that, the institutions that we have created based on those assumptions, our educational institutions, our business practices, our governing institutions, etc. So here's the question. We know that consciousness changes in history. The way our brain is wired today is not the way a medieval serf's brain would be wired, and their brain wouldn't be the same as the wiring of a forager hunter 30,000 years ago. So the question I asked at the beginning of this study 6 years ago with this book is, how does consciousness change in history? Is it possible that we human beings who are soft-wired for empathic distress, is it possible we could actually extend our empathy to the entire human race as an extended family, and to our fellow creatures as part of our evolutionary family, and to the biosphere as our common community?
We're going to hit 70% penetration of cell phones in the developing world by the end of 2013. Think about it. That a Maasai warrior on a cell phone in the middle of Kenya has better mobile comm than President Reagan did 25 years ago. And if they're on a smartphone on Google, they've got access to more knowledge and information than President Clinton did 15 years ago. They're living in a world of information and communication abundance that no one could have ever predicted. Here is the biggest force for bringing about a world of abundance. I call it the rising billion. In 2010, we had just short of 2 billion people online connected. By 2020, that's going from 2 billion to 5 billion internet users. 3 billion new minds who have never been heard from before are connecting to the global conversation. And they will get healthier by using the tricorder, and they'll become better educated by using the Khan Academy, and by literally being able to use 3D printing and infinite computing more productive than ever before. So what could 3 billion rising, healthy, educated, and productive members of humanity bring to us? How about a set of voices that have never been heard from before? What about giving the oppressed, wherever they might be, the voice to be heard and the voice to act for the first time ever? What will these 3 billion people bring? What about contributions we can't even predict?
But if we have gone from empathy in blood ties to empathy in religious associational ties to empathy based on national identification, is it really a big stretch to imagine the new technologies allowing us to connect our empathy to the human race writ large in a single biosphere? Today, we're in a globally connected world. Our youngsters can begin to empathize across all the traditional lines. We almost can grasp the possibility of global empathy. The new communications, the ICT revolution, is open source, flat, peer-to-peer, and here's the key word: it's distributed. Meaning 2 billion people can put a little utensil in their hand and they can send their own video, audio, and text to all the other 2 billion people at the same time, at the speed of light, with more power than the centralized BBC, and we did it all in 15 years.
We have heard the rationales offered by the superpowers. We know who speaks for the nations, but who speaks for the human species? Who speaks for Earth? Our global civilization is clearly on the edge of failure in the most important task it faces, preserving the lives and well-being of its citizens and the future habitability of the planet. Shouldn't we consider in every nation major changes in the traditional ways of doing things, a fundamental restructuring of economic, political, social, and religious institutions? Fundamental changes in society are sometimes labeled impractical or contrary to human nature, as if there were only one human nature. But fundamental changes can clearly be made. We're surrounded by them. In the last 2 centuries, abject slavery, which was with us for thousands of years, has almost entirely been eliminated in a stirring worldwide revolution. Women, systematically mistreated for millennia, are gradually gaining the political and economic power traditionally denied to them. And some wars of aggression have recently been stopped or curtailed because of a revulsion felt by the people in the aggressor nations.
What gives me tremendous confidence in the future is the fact that we are now more empowered as individuals to take on the grand challenges of this planet. We have the tools with this exponential technology, we have the passion of the DIY innovator, and we have 3 billion new minds coming online to work with us, to solve the grand challenges, to do that which we must do.
Our children are being revolutionized in terms of their consciousness to fit the new temporal spatial orientation of the biosphere. The kids in 1st grade are learning that everything they do, the clothes they wear, the food they eat, the electricity they use, the car the family drives, all of that affects their carbon footprint and impacts some other human being or some other creature somewhere else in the biosphere, because we're all connected. That's a revolution. We have the technology that allows us to extend the central nervous system and to think viscerally as a family, not just intellectually. It's not going to give us utopia. It's not going to eliminate the fragilities and the inconsistencies and the imperfections and the struggle of being alive. But it will give us a sense of our stewardship of this planet. And we know at the end of our life, when we look back, we don't look back on our life and we don't say, gee, that moment where I made a new deal, I felt really impregnable as an island to myself. I felt really detached and rational and really objective. I was able to extinguish my libido and enjoy my utility. I just don't think, there may be some pathological person that does that, but as my wife said, it's the deathbed chest. When we look back at our life, we look back and it's the moments where we had that empathic connection, where we transcended ourselves and could actually feel a loved one or someone else as if we were experiencing ourselves. We feel super alive. It's one of those moments where we actually feel transcendence. You don't have to be religious. And we felt we're connected.
You, the people, have the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness.
The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism and to rabid nationalist fervor are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed. We are one planet.